Welcome to my channel. This video is for an 18-inch Deco Mesh Wreath. Please subscribe and don't forget to tap the bell so you'll receive notifications on my uploads and live streams. I'm using an 18-inch wire wreath form. This does not have wires already attached, so I'm attaching chenille stems. I'm going across the bottom first, everywhere there's a cross wire, and I'm attaching it towards the bottom and I'm tying it very tightly. You can add a dab of hot glue if you need to keep it from moving. Now this wreath form comes from a craft store. It is a little bit different than the ones from Dollar Tree. All wire wreath forms are different from different stores. So I'm showing you a different one. This one only has 6 sections and it has 3 wires. So after I get the ones on the bottom, I'm attaching on the top, but I'm attaching it to the 2 top ones. So the middle one and the top one, because if you attach it only to the top, the mesh will fall inwards, so you don't want that to happen, so attach it to both wires. First I'm going to use this 21-inch Deco Mesh and I'm going to do the poof method. So I'm just going to take it and ruffle or gather it there at the end. Just gather it all together and then attach it, and I'm starting at the bottom. I always start at the bottom. You can start at the top wherever you want to, and you want to tie it very tightly. And then I'm going to go ahead and use a 4-inch cable tie and attach that end to the wreath form as well, just to secure it. Give it a little extra security there. You see there's just a little bit of mesh. I don't want it very big because you don't want to be able to see all that, and then cut off that cable tie. Now usually on these wreath forms I do 12-inch poofs, but that's not going to work on this wreath form since the sections are bigger. So I'm going to show you why. On these first 2 poofs I'm doing 12 inches just to show you they are not big enough. It looks funny. So what you want to do is I'm going with 14-inch, and that makes them much bigger. You could even go bigger than that. When I used to make these, I used to use an entire roll, and I used to make them very poofy. You could almost not even see a hole in the center. I made them so poofy. But with selling on Etsy, I have learned that the deeper you make your wreath, the more it costs to ship it. So I try to keep the depthness down on my wreath. So unless somebody wants it really deep and really poofy, then I'll do it that way. But again, you can do it more than 14 inches if you want it poofier. This is just a guide, and you're going to have quite a bit of mesh left over. I won't have a half a roll, but I'll have at least a third of a roll left over. I'm going all the way around, and then when I get to the very end, you want to make sure you fill up every space. So end up where you started, and then you just want to cross over to get to the top or to the bottom, whichever one you started on. Just carefully tie that. It's exactly the same. You're just crossing over to the top and tie it on very tightly. I always give them a couple of good twists. You can see you want to pull those poofs apart when you're done too. So now just go and pick which direction works for you. I've got my mesh on my right, so that's the way I'm going. If you had it on the left, you'd want to go the other way. So just make yourself all the way around again. And when I get to the end, I cut over 14 inches, and I like to cut it straight. That way I don't have a mess on the end of the roll there when I use it again. So I went over a couple of inches, and then you just want to push that end through the wreath form and tie it off, or you can make a loop with it. I do it differently all the time. I've shown different ways to do this, how to end it off. So there's just different ways you can do it, whichever you prefer. If you're using these cable ties, make sure you pull it as tight as you can get it, and then cut it off as close down to the end there, the little knot, and then turn it so it's not, the jagged end is not facing out where it'll scratch a door. And then just flip it over and start spreading out your poofs. So you want it as poofy as you can get it. So just spread all those out. Now I'm going to move on to my 10-inch mesh, and I'm going to cut these into 20-inch pieces because I want to ruffle them. If you don't have a rotary cutter, use scissors. Just try to cut it as straight as possible. If you do invest in a rotary cutter, I suggest you get a good one. This is a Fiskars, and I've been really happy with it. I had a cheaper one first, and it didn't work very well. So I'm just rolling the end there just a little bit under, and then ruffling it with both hands, and then kind of rolling the other end down as well. So it kind of gives it a little bit of a spiral on each end, but not quite. And this is not really a woodland ruffle. A woodland ruffle, you would do more spiraling on each end and you cut it longer. But I just like to do that. It helps with the fraying. It really reduces the fraying. And I also like to go ahead and untwist the chenille stem and attach the ruffle directly on top of the white mesh. Again, roll that under, and then so I always flip it over on the back side and roll under, and then flip it back over the right direction and ruffle, and then kind of twist that last end down. So here I am unraveling the white chenille stem and then attaching it directly on top of the white, and twist it really snug. Try to pull it snug and give it a couple of good twists, and then you kind of want to spread out your ruffle too. Make sure it's nice and full and covering your wreath. And I did everywhere that the white mesh was attached, I attached a ruffle. Now I'm going to attach 2 colors of Deco Mesh tubing, and I'm just tying them on with the chenille stem, and I'm tying it very tightly, so I'm twisting it real tight because I don't want those to pull loose. And you just want to let them naturally form where they are, and just make the loops a little bit bigger than the poufs, the mesh poufs. And I am zigzagging this tubing, so I'm attaching it starting at the top and then going to the bottom and then back up to the top. So I'm just constantly zigzagging, attaching it where all the poufs and the ruffles are. And again, you just want to leave them a little bit bigger than the poufs. And just remember to give the chenille stem a couple of good twists to secure them on there, and just constantly go back and forth. And I did not measure how much I had, so I don't know how much I exactly used. These are partial packages that were already open, so I just used what I had. And you can also cut these into lengths and then make loops if you want and tie them on like that. I ended up being a little bit short on the green, so what I'm doing is I'm just going around and pulling on that dark green just a little bit to add a little bit more length so I can end up where I started. And there I ended up with just enough there. So again, I'm going to twist that where I started and give it a couple of good twists and then cut that off pretty short. And that is it. I will be decorating this later on, so look for that. Thanks for watching. I hope everybody enjoyed this. Please share, like, comment, subscribe. Please be kind to others, and happy crafting.